in this module, we are going to sign up on n8n and then set up your environment so that you can start building your own automation. Now, n8n is a workflow automation tool. Think of it like a digital pipe system. You put some data in one end, customer order for example, and it flows through different pipes, what we call nodes in n8n, and it comes out on the other end as a finished task. So that finished product could be an invoice that is sent to a customer's email. So n8n is not the only automation platform. There is also make.com. You may have heard of it since you're curious about AI automation. So Make is another platform where you can actually build AI automation, but they have their ups and downs. And then there is also Zapier. My page is not properly loaded. Let me refresh this. So yeah, there is Zapier. Zapier is actually the very first platform for AI, I wouldn't say AI automation, more like workflow automation. It's been there for a long while. n8n and Make, they are quite new. So more automation platforms are coming up every day, trying to simplify the process of creating these automations. But one thing is sure about n8n. n8n gives you the ability to build anything. Even if you are not a coder, you are not a developer, you can still use n8n to build. And if you are already a developer and you want to still flex your coding skills, n8n gives you that capability to do that. So basically, that's all there is to know about all of these platforms. So one thing that is very different about these platforms that I mentioned is how they charge you. n8n, for example, is open source. That means it is literally free. You can pull the entire code that powers n8n and use it within your own repository. If you look at this place, you see it has 167,000 GitHub stars. It shows that a lot of people are using it, and this is not just fake value. This value is actually coming from GitHub. If I click on this, it will take you to the n8n repository on GitHub, and you will also see that value here. Look at it, 168,000 stars. So it shows you how many people enjoy using this product. And then you see this fork here. This is how many people have cloned this software or platform to be using it independent of n8n cloud. So let me show you something about the pricing. So while you can use n8n for free, you can also use it in the cloud. You can use it on n8n cloud. So if I say n8n cloud, I'm referring to you actually hosting it with n8n. So they have these packages, $20 per month. There is $50. And for each of these tiers, there are limitations. Here you can only run 2,500 execution per month. So once you run out of this quota, you would have to wait for the month to end, or you upgrade your plan to the next one. So these are limitations that people try to avoid, and that is why you have a lot of fork here on this GitHub repository. People are hosting it on their own instead of paying these subscriptions here. So even if you upgrade to this plan, where you can run 10,000, it can become very expensive, especially if you are an agency or an individual that is building a lot of workflows for businesses. So the cost is not it's not very affordable or profitable. Okay, so enough about that. There are two ways you can use n8n. I've just explained. You can host it yourself. Okay, what we call on-premise hosting. So you get your own server. Like I use the n8n on-premise hosting with Google Cloud. Because I cannot pay all of these fees, it will become too expensive for some of the clients that I build for. So I choose to use the on-premise hosting. But for this course or this module, we are going to use the n8n cloud. So you have a 14-day trial period. That should be enough for you to start, and then you can set up your own n8n on-premise hosting. I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a link to a web page where you can follow these steps there to set up your own n8n on Google Cloud for free. So watch out for that link. So now that we've done that, so let's go to n8n and just simply sign up. So we're going to say get started, click on this link, and then enter your email address, and then confirm that email address, enter your name. So your company email is your name at your company name, .com. and then you confirm that email, give it your name, and then you choose a password, and there you go, you sign up. So once you sign up, I'll see you on the other side so we can start building. All right, so I'm hoping that you have successfully signed up on n8n Cloud. Now you're going to log in, visit the URL. When you sign up, they give you a URL. Follow that URL to sign in into your account. So I'm going to sign into my on-premise hosting. It requires me to enter my two-factor authentication. All right, so once you have successfully logged in, you're going to be seeing a very blank space right here. That's because you've not built any workflow yet, so this place is going to be very empty. So I'm going to walk you through the entire interface so you understand how to navigate this area. So on n8n, there are these tabs that you need to pay attention to. The first one is the workflows. The workflows, this is the home of your bots. Everything you build, this is where they reside. And then we have the credentials. This is your keychain. If you want to talk to Gmail, you want to talk to WhatsApp, you want to talk to Paystack, you store the passwords here and they are all encrypted and safe. Okay, so every app you have connected will be listed here. And then we also have the execution tab. The execution tab is like the CCTV. So if a bot fails, if your workflow fails at 2 a.m., you check the execution tab to see exactly what happened. Okay, so this is where you see all the errors. And when you open each of those executions, you see where it failed. It will show the exact node where it failed. And if you open that node, you'll be able to see the error that resulted to the workflow failing. Then we also have these variables. If you're using on-premise hosting, you cannot create variables. So variables are global names that you can call from different workflows. I'm not using the cloud. I don't have access to this, and it is not a limitation, trust me. And then we have the data table. This is a new feature that was just released late 2025. So this one allows you to store your data locally on n8n. So most times when you start to build, you will be calling data from different sources like Google Sheets, Airtable, even from other databases like MongoDB and stuff. So that third-party fetching of data, creates a little bit of lag, in the time or response time. So n8n provide this so you can store your data locally within n8n. The thing is, this is very new, so for me, I've not really found a use case for it yet. As you can see, I don't have any tables. Maybe I can use it to store execution errors, but right now I don't have any use case for this particular data table. So let's create a workflow. So to create a new workflow, you simply say create workflow, and then you will have an empty canvas. So to add a new node, you simply click on the node panel, that plus sign, and then it opens this place up. There are a lot of nodes here. I don't know how many, but there are a lot. You don't need to know all of them. You just need to know what you're looking for and then search for it. So for example, I can search dates, and I have dates. I can search Google Sheets. You can see Google Drive there. I can say Sheets, and I have Sheets. Even ads, you see Google Ads. I can search Meta or Facebook, and then you have all these triggers that will start your execution. So now that you are very familiar with the environment, let's build our very first workflow. So we're going to build a simple morning greeter that will run at 8 a.m. every day. So in design, we usually start with a very simple application. It's almost impossible for you not to get it right. So first we'll have a trigger that starts, the workflow, and then we'll add some action. So to start, we're going to go to the node panel and search for schedule. So schedule trigger, you can choose how often you want this to run. This is seconds, in minutes, hours, days, week, or you can even choose a custom cron to run. Okay, cron is simply a scheduled job or task that should run at a specific time. So in our case, we want it to run every day. So we choose day, every one day. So that's every day. We want it to run at 8 a.m. So we choose 8 a.m. at the very 0 second or minute. If you want it to run at the 5th minute of the hour, you put 5 here. You want it to run at the 15 minutes of the hour. So this will run at 8:15. But in our case, we want it to run at exactly 8 o'clock. So this is our trigger. So we can execute this. and then it pops up this data with all this information that you can use to do something in the next node. So let's go back. This is a trigger. Anytime you are going to be dealing with what we call nodes. Nodes are just actions, triggers and actions within your workflow. Usually you have only one trigger and then you have a lot of actions. In this case, our trigger is going to be when it is 8 o'clock in the morning every single day. That is going to be the trigger to this workflow that we are building. So n8n works like this. There is a trigger and there is an action. Now we have a trigger that runs at 8 a.m. every morning. Then we need to add an action. The action is going to be, let's add something called edit. Edit is a node, edit feed. Okay. So every time you add a node, the node has access to the data from the previous node. So we're going to create a simple message here that is going to run 8 a.m. every day. So let's add a feed. We're going to call this feed message. I said field. You can also call it a variable. All right. So yeah, so we have a message. Now here you can see T or type. What is the type of this message? A type defines the kind of value that is allowed to be stored here. Okay, so in our case, what we want to store inside message is a string, and that's usually going to be the data type you will deal with most of the time. A string is simply a piece of text that is surrounded by quotes, either single or double quotes. And then we have other data types here. We have number, we have boolean. Number is a number, I don't need to explain that. And then we have boolean. Boolean is a true or false, a 1 or 0, a high or low, on or off. Okay, that's what boolean is. Is it true or false? Is it 1 or 0? Okay, is it open or closed? Boolean has only two outcomes. It's either true or it's false. It's either high or it's low. And then we have array. Array is a list, and this is the core data type you deal with in n8n. I'm going to explain that later. And then we have the object. So it's a combination of these two, array and object. That's what we deal with in n8n. So I don't want to bug you with the details of what this means in terms of programming. You don't need to know, but I'm going to show you how to use them without worrying about what they mean. And then we have the binary data. Okay, so for this message, we're going to be using string because what we want to store inside this message is a piece of text that is surrounded by quotes. So we choose what is the value. The value is going to be, let's put a message here. It could be, well, you can quote it or you can leave it unquoted. Okay, say good morning, chief. Did I space that? It's time to make money. All right. So we have successfully set our message. So message is a field, a variable that has the value, good morning, chief. It's time to make money. Now we can execute this code by simply saying execute step. So if we say execute step, we are running only this node, this edit node. That's what we are running. Okay, so I'm going to say execute, and boom, you have good morning, chief. It's time to make money. Yeah, we could also decide not to use the static message. We can decide to use a variable from this other part of the node, from our trigger, readable date here. We can simply drag that into here to be our value. Okay, so we can even merge that with our message over here and say like this. So you see the outcome here. So it gives you the date and say, good morning, chief. It's time to make money. So if we execute this, you see the message over here change. So that's how you create a simple message. So let's go back to our workflow. So you can hold your control key and drag things around on the canvas. All right, so now we have a trigger and now we also have an action. So if we click this, it will simply run. Okay, it runs through. If you open here, you'll see it has executed. You have the message over here. This doesn't do much, but trust me, this is a very good start for you. So you can rename your workflow to something memorable, something you can remember or easily search for, because once your workflow grows, you would be looking for them. So give it a name. You can call it Hello World. You can call it any name you like. All right, so Our bot is very good. Okay, we've been able to execute a simple workflow, but right now it is so dumb. It sends good morning, and even on Saturdays and Sundays that I want to have a good sleep, it's still going to be sending me that message at 8 a.m. Maybe I want to sleep till 10 a.m., but it's still going to be sending me that message. It's more like an alarm. Okay, so I don't want to be greeted on Sunday. I want to sleep. So we need a logic to be able to do that, and we'll need a node called the if node so that we don't receive the message on Sundays and Saturdays. So we're going to put a security guard between the trigger and the message or our action. We can add another node here, or you can even delete it completely so that you can add your node in between them. So let's put our security guard in between these two nodes. So if you click here, add, it opens the node panel, and now you can search for if. Every node has a description. The description tells you what the node does. So even if you don't know, you can just by looking at this description have an idea of what that node does for you. And that's how you are going to learn how to use some of the nodes. And like I told you, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of nodes here. You cannot understand all of them. You don't have to understand all of them. Just look for what, just learn the ones you need and you will be fine. Okay, usually when you have a need for a node, you will figure it out by yourself. So here we have the if statement, and it shows you that it routes item to different branches: a true or false, a 1 or 0, a up or down, a on or off, open or close. Basically, that's what the if statement is for. It has to just choose out of two options. So let's add our if node. Again, you see that the same data from the trigger is available to the if node here. Trust me, there are maybe up to 5 different ways to do this, to answer this question. Individuals are different, and the way we think about problems are different. So it doesn't have to be the way I'm going to solve it right now. You might be thinking about it in a different way. If you find another way to solve this problem, trust me, it is very, very okay, because there are a million ways to solve any problem. Okay, so we are going to check what day it is, and if that day is Saturday, we are not going to send the message. If it is Sunday, we are not going to send the message, but every other day we would send the message. So let's look for a way. I'm going to think of an approach. Okay, before I talk about that, we need to be using this expression tab. So this one is fixed. Anything you put here is fixed, but here you can write expressions. So for this problem that we are going to solve, we need an expression to determine a Saturday and Sunday. So always use this tab. Make it a habit to always switch to this tab. Okay, all right. So in n8n, when you want to write a piece of code or JavaScript or expression, you start with the double curly braces. So this entire piece of information from the trigger is a data type, and it is an array. I mentioned some types of data types earlier on. So here we have an array. When you see a square bracket like this, it means an array. Array means a list of items. So here we have an array, and then inside the array we have an object. So when you see curly braces, it represents an object. So an object usually have key values. So this is a key. This is a value. Timestamp. This is the timestamp. We have a year. The year is the key, and 2026 is the value. Okay. So what kind of data type is this one? It is an array of objects. Usually to be an array of objects. So you have several of these curly braces within this square bracket. All right. So to be able to access the information that is here, the easiest way is to simply, if you want the month, you simply drag it over here. Okay. So I will have to remove this one. And when I dragged it here, it did something. It says JSON.month. So it's referring to this guy, this curly brace here, as the JSON. And then it points to a key, and the key is Monday. So if you do that, the value of JSON.Monday is January, and that's the value you have here. So if you want to access any of these values, you have to mention JSON.the key, and then you get the value as we've seen here. So you might be asking, what is JSON, by the way? So JSON is JavaScript object notation. It is a data type. This is the most common data type for data exchange on the internet. So if one application wants to talk to another application, they usually exchange data in this format. There's another format called XML. XML is kind of old and outdated. Today, JSON is the most popular data exchange type. In n8n or in AI automation, workflow automation, you'll be dealing with this kind of data type a lot. So you need to get familiar with it. I think it's pretty simple. So let's go back to solving our problem. So let's get today's date. What is today? We already have that as timestamp here. Okay, so we can even use this, but I just want to deal with this variable. It's always available anywhere in n8n. Now means this time. If you look at the value, it says date time, and it's almost the same as the timestamp here. Right, so we say now, and if you add the dot to it, you see a lot of functions or methods that will come up. You can scroll down. So now has same, now equals, now is between. So you can compare date now to ISO. You can convert it to ISO format. Now you can define the format. If you look at this, I put year, month, day, and then it converts now this timestamp to this particular date. Okay, so there are a lot of things you can do here. So, but what I want to do is I want to determine whether today is Friday, today is Saturday or Sunday. So I'm going to do now.weekday. Okay, weekday, and it's telling me today is actually Saturday. Good. Now.weekday gives me Saturday, which is 6th day of the week. That's the value you're seeing here. So if you do now.weekday on Sunday, the value will be 7. If you do now.weekday on Monday, the value will be 1, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now.weekday is 6. So let's use this value to determine whether it is Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, or Sunday. Okay, so the simple logic here will be if now this weekday, the value of the weekday is less than, so we're going to use a number, okay, because the value we have here, the type is number. So we come here and we say number. If number is less than, any day that is less than 6 is Monday to Friday. Okay, so that's the simple logic we are using here. Any day that is less than 6 is Monday to Friday. Any day that is equal to 6 and above is Saturday and Sunday. So, like I said, there are different ways you can think about this problem and solve it, but this is what I could come up with right now to solve this problem. Anytime you use this operator that says equal to, less than, exists, is after, is equal to, if you use any of these, is false or true, if you use any of these, the result you are going to get is going to come out as true or false. Only two values. So this is a Boolean operator, is less than. That's a Boolean operator. Remember I said Boolean has two values, true or false, and I explained that data type earlier. This operator here are called Boolean operators. Okay. So the question we're asking here is weekday less than 6? That's a question. So the answer is going to be either true or false. So let's execute and see what the outcome is going to be. We execute and it says it is true. Today is 6. So for that reason, we are not going to run this. So you see on the false branch, we have the data, but on the true branch, we don't have the data, meaning today is Saturday, so we are not going to run our morning greeting or morning greeter. So that's how it works. So here it's false. If it's any other day other than this day, it will run. But if it is this day, which is 6, it will not run. I hope I'm not over explaining this to you. Let's look at this guy. Now we have our security guard here to determine whether it is Saturday or Sunday. Because we have already executed this node, if you look, it's green on the false tab. If you execute it from the beginning, you see it goes to the false tab because today is Saturday. So we are not going to be running our morning greeter. But if our value is less than 6, this will be true. And so this will be executed. Since we only want it to run when it is true, we connect this node here. And when it is not true, nothing will happen. The whole thing dies here. It stops here. If we execute this, it's going to run through the false tab because today is actually Saturday, so it's not going to run. But assuming today is another day, it's going to be true, and then it will execute our message. So let's try and simulate that. Okay, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to say that today's value is 4. Okay, so once I say it's 4 and we execute, this time the data is passed to the true, meaning today is actually Thursday. According to this value here, it shows that today is Thursday. So for that reason, it's going to pass the message. This data is going to pass it through this tab so that we can use it in the next node. All right. So in this case, if we go back, you see it is the true handle is executed. It turns green, showing you that this is the path the data is passing through. All right. So if I run it again, you see how it runs through that tab. But if this value is, say, 7, and then we go back and we run this all over again, it follows the first tab because today is Sunday according to the number that we have here. Right, but we don't want to have static value here, but I just want to use that to show you. So I'm going to leave it at 4 so that we can execute our greeting message here. So it runs through here. If you open here, you see now we have our message over here. So you can save this workflow as your very first build.